Good morning, everyone. My name is Ernie Lopez, and I'm a state senator from Delaware, and I'm very humbled and pleased to be the chair of the Education Committee here for CSG East. It's wonderful to see so many faces of friends and colleagues. I see my dear friend and caucus colleague, our Senate Minority Whip, Brian Pettyjohn from Delaware, and others here as well. And we appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy mornings here in August when there's so much else going on to join in fellowship together and to have a good conversation about education. And I am very pleased to have my dear friend and the staffer for the Education Committee, Max Morley, who as always has done a fantastic job of putting together the program for the time that we're going to share together. And I appreciate Max and all of his great work. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to him at this time so he can share some comments and some thoughts and go over the presentation as we get started. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Senator. It's always a joy to have you on. Folks, I'm going to give you just a quick rundown of what we're talking about today, and then we will jump right into it. So we're going to go around for the committee members who've joined us, go around to say, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your service, and just a quick word on what's happening in education in your state. Then we're going to move into our content for the day. We're joined by Matt Shafer, also from the Council of State Governments, who's going to be telling us about a Interstate Compacts project for teachers that's in the full swing right now. Then we're joined by Akeem Anderson from CityHealth. He's going to talk to us about some considerations around universal pre-K in states. And then we're going to move into talking just very briefly about some work that as committee members, you all have access to doing, some of the things that you have access to that might be helpful for you, but also helpful for education in the Eastern region. And that's why we're all here. And then we'll close out, take any remaining questions, and we'll have a quick discussion on maybe what works best for people schedule wise moving forward for us to have more meetings. So at this point, if you are, there's no particular order. If you're a committee member, please feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what's happening in your state.
I'll go ahead and start. Senator Brian Pettyjohn here in Delaware. Great to see my good friend and colleague, Senator Lopez. I tell you, here in Delaware, as with everywhere, we're just trying to navigate what's been going on with COVID over the last year. And a lot of it has been adjustments. We're trying to be as nimble and as agile as possible in doing adjustments. We have some great school districts here in Delaware that have come up with some very innovative solutions throughout the pandemic to try to get as much content out to our children as possible. And as a General Assembly, we've been trying to support them. That's I think that's the story of everybody this year, is just trying to survive and support our schools as much as we can through the policies, be as nimble as possible with passing bills and to help our educational facilities as much as we can. Somebody else?
And I'll note as well, we do have a couple of members who didn't make it, but did send some staff. So staff, please feel free to share out as well. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm State Representative Malou McKenzie from Pennsylvania. I got newly elected last November, and I was a teacher in my earlier life. And I serve on the Education Committee and the Youth and Children Committee. And right now, the big thing, I represent 5 school districts in my area. And of course, it's the same as everywhere. The big topics are masking the children, whether or not they're going to have in-person teaching. And I guess school choice is just a really, really big hot topic, because the parents found out this last year that I think that the sentiment is that in a lot of instances, the public schools let the parents down, and the parents had to go to charter schools, cyber charter. So we'll see how this school year pans out, but it's already very controversial in my area because the parents are coming out in droves to the school board meetings. So that's all I have to report right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Representative. Who we got next? I know that we got a few other folks.
Hi, I'm Susan. I'm here on behalf of Senator Paul Pinsky in Maryland. I'm his aide. I am a former teacher, but they've been busy here in Maryland getting schools open. Schools are opening this week and next week. Most jurisdictions will have kids wearing masks, but sporting events, everything else in the school is open, and people are excited and happy to be trying to return to normal.
All right, anyone else? I'm not going to make you talk, but anyone else who wants to say a few words before we jump into some content? I'm a former teacher as well, so I know the power of waiting. So.
Max, I'll say hello.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
David Biet here, hiding out in my office. I'm watching two computers at the same time, trying to do both events. But glad you all could get together. Nice to see Senator Lopez chairing the committee and other representatives too. And having Matt here is good as well. So I'm going to go back to hiding and looking at the other one as well at the same time, trying to manage both. But have a great session.
David, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate even we're half your attention. We're very, very excited to have it. Thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead and just jump straight into some content. We're joined by one of my colleagues, Matt Shafer, who I don't think it's an overstatement to say is at this point a real expert in all things occupational licensure. He's going to talk to us a bit about a project that's happening at CSG that is very, very exciting. And I think a lot of you will find it exciting as well. So Matt, I'm going to jump in and share my screen, and I'm going to turn things over to you.
Great, thank you, Max. Like Max said, Matt Shafer. I'm here in a dark and rainy Lexington, Kentucky at CSG's headquarters. Excited to be talking with you guys today about a topic that I'm very interested in, and that's occupational licensing. Today we're going to be talking specifically about an interstate compact for the teaching profession and how interstate compacts can enhance mobility for certified teachers to practice in multiple states. So it's a big workforce issue that a lot of states are interested in, removing barriers to licensing so that their practitioners can have ease of practice across state lines. So real quickly, I just wanted to go over the basics of what is an interstate compact. So here we have just a definition of how CSG defines an interstate compact. I think the two things to note here is one, it's legislatively enacted, and two, it is a legal binding contract between states. This is not just a reciprocal agreement that maybe is written into a state's rules and regulations, but this is a contract that is passed through the legislature. And once you join the compact, it is binding. There are provisions for you to remove yourself from the compact, but once you have passed it, it is binding and you're bound to the provisions of that compact. So that makes it a little bit more effective than just writing something into rules that could be easily changed. So compacts are used, as you can see here, to collectively address shared problems across states like teacher certification, while at the same time letting states maintain their sovereignty. So this is not a federal solution that's one size fits all. This is states coming together and crafting something that fits their particular needs. And then lastly, like you can see here, respond to national priorities with one voice. So for years, we've heard a need for increased mobility in licensed professions, particularly teaching. You think about, just all of the hoops that teachers have to jump through when moving from state to state. And Max is a prime example of this. He can share his story about being a teacher and doing Teach for America and having to teach in multiple different states. And it is burdensome for our teachers. And so hopefully developing an interstate compact will help alleviate some of those burdens. So on the next slide, we can see just some of the advantages of these interstate compacts that are focused on occupational licensing. Interstate compacts have a wide variety of use. On the previous slide, and I failed to mention this, but the easiest example of an interstate compact is your driver's license. Everyone probably has one of these with them right now. The states came together to try to figure out how to facilitate driving across state lines while maintaining your license, and they developed an interstate compact to do that. So, you know, when you drive in another state, you do not have to go through that licensing process in the new state. Your home state license punches your ticket to drive anywhere you want, and that's because of an interstate compact that was developed by states. It's not a federal mandate. So you can see here, facilitating multi-state practice. That's the primary use of these occupational licensing compacts. Improve public health and safety. These compacts allow for state boards to collaborate, to come together and share disciplinary issues for licensees. It just creates a broader net of public protection for licensed professions, so that there's more transparency. You can see every licensee's their credentials and their employment history, their any encumbrances on their license or any kind of disciplinary record. You have access to all that information. So it's helping the regulatory community make better decisions and have access to more information. And then lastly, and I mentioned this on the previous slide, allows states to maintain their authority. So what a compact will do, it will not tell you how to certify teachers. All it deals with is the initial certification requirements. So it doesn't say anything about actually how a teacher is defined in terms of like a practice act or anything like that. If there are certain subjects that you can teach in one state, but you can't in another state, you're beholden to that state that you are teaching in. You have to abide by that state's rules and regulations. So the compact deals with the discrepancies on the front end in terms of actually receiving the certification. But once you are practicing in that remote state that maybe you don't have a license in, you're beholden to that state's rules and regulations. So that doesn't change at all. States can maintain their authority over scope of practice and how they define what a teacher can and can't do. So you can see here at the bottom, these are really popular. Within the past 5 years, over 180 pieces of compact legislation have been signed into law by governors. There's 9 professions that have them currently, and we'll see a list here in a second. And you can see most of the states, 44, have at least one, and about a little bit over half have passed at least 3. So on the next slide, we can see the 9 professions that have interstate compacts in place right now. You can see the nurse licensure compact is the largest, medicine, physical therapy. A lot of the health and allied health professions have these mechanisms in place for multi-state practice. And really that's because these professions lend themselves to being a good fit for a compact because of their uniformity of standards. You think about what it takes to become a nurse in one state, it's pretty uniform across the country. You graduate from an accredited nursing program, you pass the national exam, and that pretty much punches your ticket to being a nurse anywhere via the compact. With teaching, it's a little bit different. It's going to be tricky how we define in the compact how you're able to participate because the requirements across states vary so drastically. So you can see here the professions that currently have these. The next slide shows the professions that CSG is currently working with to develop new interstate compacts for licensure portability. So you can see here K-12 teaching is the one that we're really focused on today, but others that we're currently working with: social work, dentistry, cosmetology, massage therapy, and then physician's assistants. And I will note here, The 5 of these, besides physician's assistants, so the first 5 here on this list, are all being funded through a cooperative agreement that CSG has with the U.S. Department of Defense. You may wonder, why does the Department of Defense care about licensure portability? And really, their perspective on the issue comes down to wanting to keep their military spouses employed while they are while their spouses are in active duty. So think about, if you're a teacher in one state and you are having to move to a new state every 1 to 2 years because of basing decisions, that is extremely burdensome to have to go through that full licensure process over and over again. And more than likely, you're probably just going to give up. You're probably just going to drop out and stop teaching because it's so difficult to go through the licensure process when you're moving every 1 to 2 years. So that's the DoD's perspective on this. And they've given CSG money and said, we trust your process. We think compacts are the gold standard for achieving portability. And they want us to go and build as many of these mechanisms as we can. And so that's K-12 teaching was selected as recipients of this funding from the Department of Defense. On the next slide, we can just see here a heat map of where states which states are passing these the most. So you can see there's a couple states in the Northeast that haven't passed any of these yet. So we'd love to see some of those states get on board with compacts. But most of the states, as you can see here, have passed at least 1, if not 3 or 4 more of these agreements. So just to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits again. So obviously the primary benefit of what a compact provides, we've talked about, that's increased mobility. You're able to practice across state lines, whether that's, you're living on a border state and you're able to stay at home and practice in that state that's bordering you. I'm based in Kentucky, so I'm thinking of the northern Kentucky area borders Indiana and Ohio. So if you live in northern Kentucky, you'd have access to both of those markets through an interstate compact. You could practice in either of those states if they were members of the compact. Another advantage here is telepractice. I know that might not be as relevant for teaching as some of the health professions that we work with. But during the pandemic, we were seeing, a lot of virtual learning, virtual school going on. And so this would allow someone to do that across state lines and have a mechanism in place for that. And then supporting military families, which I just went over. So that's benefits for practitioners. State boards really like these because primarily they bring the profession together on uniform licensure requirements. So they kind of force the profession, force states to come together and say, all right, this is what it takes to become a teacher across the board. And it really syncs together states on what are the initial requirements, how do we define a competent beginning teacher who's trying to get their certification. Shared data system. Boards love the shared data system that's in place through the compact. Every compact has a data system that actively tracks all licensees that are utilizing the compact, and you can see in real time everyone who's practicing in your state, whether they're licensed in your state or whether they're practicing in your state via the compact. And so state boards really like that extra layer of visibility that they have to see who is currently practicing in their state and what's the disciplinary history with their license. Enhances cooperation. That really deals with states coming together on joint disciplinary issues. And then again, expands ability to protect public health and safety. And I think we've covered that plenty. So on the next slide, benefits to states. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is not some sort of federal mandate. This is a state solution. States are coming together and crafting something that makes sense for them. Strengthens state sovereignty. I talked about that, how states are able to maintain what it means to be a teacher in their state while also accepting teachers from other states to come and practice. Increases access to highly qualified practitioners. So, if you're in a district that has a teacher shortage, you're able to now pull from teachers that are out of state to maybe help come and fill some of those shortages. And then strengthens labor markets, again, a similar point to what I just mentioned. So on the next slide, why do we think that teaching is a good fit for an interstate compact? So first off, when we look at professions that are a good fit for a compact, we think about size. It doesn't really make sense to develop a compact if only a small number of states license the profession, or there's a really small number of practitioners in the profession. But teaching is one of the biggest professions that we have in the entire country. You can see here 3.7 million certified teachers nationwide. In NASDTEC, the National Association of State Directors of Teacher Education and Certification, estimate that there's somewhere between 53 and 60,000 military spouses who are teachers. So that's why DoD was excited to fund this effort, and it's really going to benefit all of those 3.7 million teachers, but particularly the spouses that move so often. There's also a lot within the profession already that we can leverage for a new interstate compact. There's already a data system, like I just mentioned, that is needed for an interstate compact. NASDTEC already houses a data system that is going to be leveraged for the new teaching compact. That is a really great start on what we need. There's already an existing interstate agreement. This is, like I said at the beginning, compacts, the advantage is that it's binding in state law. NASDTEC has the interstate agreement that is, it's more of a loose handshake. And so, our plan is to work with NASDTEC to enhance this interstate agreement that already exists to make it a little bit more binding and less of a, kind of something that you may or may not participate in as a state. And then potential for future fundraising. Compacts are expensive to develop and are expensive to maintain, but just with the amount of foundations that have shown interested in this, the amount of organizations that support teachers, support the profession, there is a massive infrastructure in place to be able to support this agreement financially and structurally. And then lastly, buy-in. We've seen dozens and dozens of organizations that have signed on to support this effort and agree to participate in the development of this agreement. So on the next slide, you can just see a preliminary timeline of the development process. So there was a competitive RFP that was put out last November for professions to apply. So teaching was selected. That announcement was made in March. And so you can see here where the little arrow is on fall 21. We're convening what we call the Technical Assistance Group, which is a large stakeholder working group that's going to work to develop the interstate compact. So we have legislators on board. Like to thank Senator Lopez for his commitment to participate in this group. We're really excited for your contributions, but it's a larger stakeholder group that is going to meet periodically throughout the fall and really iron out the details of what is going to go into this compact. The next phase in the project is that a drafting team will take recommendations that the technical assistance group makes and actually draft the model legislation. We then go into a really robust, lengthy stakeholder review process where anyone in this meeting would be able to read the model legislation and provide their feedback, their comments, any edits that they have, and we would incorporate all of that into the final draft that we're looking to have next fall. So the whole process is about 12 to 18 months, but we're really excited. It does take time to develop, and then like I've said, it goes through the legislative process, so it takes time for states to pass it, but the effect is something that is lasting within the profession. It's not something that could be easily changed. on a whim by someone who has a differing viewpoint, but it's something that is going to last in the profession to provide mobility for teachers for a long time. So that's really all I had to share today. So on the next slide, you can see my contact information. If you have any questions or anything about compacts or about what we're doing specifically with the teaching profession, feel free to reach out to me. And I think we have a few more minutes. Max, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can take a question or two if there are any from the group.
Yeah, please. Anyone with questions, let us know. We have a little bit of time built in for that.
Yeah, Max, it's Ernie Lopez, and Matt, I just wanted to say thank you. I know I am very much looking forward to being a part of those conversations that are going to be continuing this fall. Again, this is a great topic. You've done a great job to start to kind of sheep herd us all together on the legislative front. And I think this is going to be a really thoughtful discussion that, just like you said, it's going to take some time, but I think this is one that demands patience. It's an important conversation, and one that I think at the end of the day is really going to benefit the shared constituencies that we have across state lines in a major way. So thanks for your help and for explaining it so well this morning. Appreciate it a great deal.
Absolutely. And I will mention that the impetus for the teaching compact initially came from a resolution from the ERC Education Committee back in, I think it was 2016, 2017. The committee passed a resolution basically saying that the East needs a teaching compact with the number of border states in the East. If you just think about all the states or all the major metropolitan areas that are on a state border, it would really benefit the East particularly to have a mechanism like this in place.
Matt, I would like to just say from Pennsylvania's standpoint, we just actually passed the nurses compact, and we do suffer from a teacher shortage. So I think this would be a really wonderful opportunity for us to take a look at the teacher compact as well.
Absolutely. And we at CSG house the National Center for Interstate Compacts. So we're the primary technical assistance provider on these mechanisms, and we help professions develop them. So if you as a legislator ever need legislative testimony, or you need us to come and speak at a hearing or anything like that, we're always available to do stuff like that. And we do educational things like this all the time. So if there's ever any, you're talking about compacts and you want us to come and educate a particular group, we're happy to do so.
Thank you. I'm sure I will call upon you. Thanks.
Yeah, anyone else with any questions or comments for Matt or any of us about the Interstate Compact for Teachers? All right, well, seeing none, let's go ahead and move over to our friend Akeem Anderson from CityHealth. He's going to talk to us a little bit about universal pre-K. So give me one moment, I'll bring that up. And Akeem.
Thank you. I'll just say that while Maxwell is pulling up the slide deck, on that previous topic, it is immensely important for states to make this consideration. I remember when I was leaving the classroom and moving from New Orleans to Philadelphia, considering my options, being able to take my teacher certification with me definitely played an impact in the places that I was going. So on that end, my name is Akeem Anderson. I'm going to talk to you guys about high quality, accessible pre-K. I know a lot of the conversation around the country has been around universal pre-K, and universal pre-K is very important, but ensuring that programs are quality is immensely important for kids and families. We can go on to the next slide. I'll talk to you a bit about CityHealth and what we do, some of the cities that we work with, and then we'll go into what we look at for pre-K. We partner with the National Institute for Early Education Research, NEAR. It's a program out of Rutgers, and they have come up with 10 pre-K quality metrics. And so I'll talk about those a bit. But I really want to leave the majority of the time that I'm with you guys to answer any questions. Before coming to CityHealth, I worked for DC City Council, which operates as a state. So we operate as a state and a city. And so I'm very familiar with some of the challenges that state legislators face when they're thinking about pre-K and universal pre-K. We actually implemented a universal pre-K program in DC, and so I'm happy to talk about that experience as well. So CityHealth is an initiative with the Beaumont Foundation and Kaiser. We work with both of them, and basically we provide city leaders with a package of 9 evidence-based policy solutions that, when implemented, lead to healthier outcomes for the people who live in those cities. We only work with cities, and we're in the process of updating our policy package, but the next slide will show our current 9 policies that we rate cities on. Affordable housing and inclusionary zoning, complete streets, earned sick leave, food safety, tobacco 21, smoke-free indoor air, safer alcohol sales, healthy food procurement, and the one that I'm going to talk to you guys about, high quality, accessible pre-K. Many of these policies are going to roll over into our next policy package that we'll be releasing in November at the National League of Cities conference. So some of the cities in your states will have representatives there, and so they'll be able to see our new policy package, but also help us close out our current policy package. Currently, we work in the largest 40 cities. With our next policy package, we'll be expanding to the largest 75 cities, mostly because that will help us have a larger impact and help with creating healthy environments for more citizens around the country. The next map shows what our footprint will look like when we get into those cities, and our policies will have an impact around 45 million Americans across the country. And we're really excited about that process. You may hear my dog in the background whining. He's a large Bernedoodle that wants a treat. What I want to talk to you guys about is high quality, accessible pre-K. Universal pre-K is extremely important, but unless we're talking about quality, then you kind of undermine your ability to have impact on kids. And the research around pre-K is proven. Kids who participate in pre-K they're better prepared, they're less likely to repeat a grade. You'll see an increase in high school graduation. They are more likely to receive their immunizations and screenings, which is very important now as we think about the COVID-19 vaccine, and once it's approved past emergency use for younger kids, what does that look like, and how do we ensure that more families have access to this life-saving vaccine? There's also a lot of research that show that kids who participate in pre-K program actually have higher earnings throughout their life. Regardless of a family's income or their zip code, all children benefit from being part of early childhood programs. And the next slide, I think, talks about some of the, yes, there's, for every dollar, we've seen research that shows that for every dollar invested in pre-K, you're going to see a $7 to $10 return on that investment. Simply put, all the research shows that pre-K is an important policy. It's part of the reason why it's becoming a national topic. And one of the pieces of advice that I give to cities when I talk to them, when they ask about what's happening on the federal level with universal pre-K, is that given the climate in Washington, D.C., you can't wait on the federal government to stop you from making this investment. Any investment that comes from the federal government would just be an added benefit. But in order to get it right, the people closest to the ground should be making this policy and having impact on it. And so the next slide, I'll talk about the 10 quality standards that we look at. I like to think about pre-K as, oh yes, this talks about our partnership with NEAR. And so NEAR came up with the 10 quality standards, which if you think about pre-K as a grade below kindergarten, the same way that you think about K through 12 education, a lot of these quality standards align to the same thing that we have in place for K through 12 education. So you have early learning and developmental standards, the same way that we have standards for English, math, social studies, and science in K through 12. The same way that we have those curriculum supports for the different subject matters in K through 12, you would have that in early childhood. The same way that we have teacher or certification requirements, our degree requirements for K through 12 teachers, you would want those exact same things in your pre-K program. The difference is when you talk about the maximum class size and the staff to child ratio, it's really important in pre-K that you stick to those maximum class sizes. The NEAR recommendation is 20, and the NEAR recommendation for staff to child ratio is 1 to 10, but you guys would know your state and what's feasible in your state and your local cities better. The other key component is to have a process for screenings and referrals. Pre-K is really the time where we're actually able to address any special education needs or any health needs early and address them so that they don't have impact on kids later in life. I taught high school English, and a lot of the instances that I saw, a lot of the issues that I saw in some of my students, had they been addressed earlier, had there been a pre-K program where kids were identified early and gotten the supports that they needed earlier, it would have made a larger difference for them as they moved on with their academic career. And then the last piece is the continuous quality improvement system. The same way that many districts and many states are implementing a improvement system for K through 12 districts and K through 12 schools, you want that same process for early childhood centers. So those are the quality standards that we look at. When we rank cities on this program, we look and see how many of these policies are in place. And if you have, I think right now the standard is if you have 8 of these 10, then you're eligible for a silver or a gold medal. And in many of the cities, because this has become a state function, many states have taken on this charge. The cities that we work with have gotten credit for these standards being implemented at the state level rather than, and they get bonus for going further on the local level. So that's what we look at when it comes to quality standards. I'll close by telling this story about DC. When DC decided to do a universal pre-K program, it was around the time where the K through 12 population was really small. And so one of the things that we did was we just added 2 grades for pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 to our K-12 system. It was easy because we already had the infrastructure in schools in order to do that. And we had the space because our K through 12 population was really small. So it was very easy to do that. And that's part of the way that we've been able to have a large amount of kids serviced by our pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 program. And it's actually led to a population boom in the city. A lot of families who were considering some of the suburban areas figured, well, I can send my kid to pre-K for free starting at 3 years old. And it sets them up for success in later years. And so since we've implemented that program, we've seen a large population boom in the city. And we've also seen more working moms stay in the workforce because the childcare question isn't there anymore for them. There were also some complications that came out of that we can talk about later. But overall, it's been a net positive for the city. And cities that have implemented pre-K programs and have seen followed the NEAR recommendations in terms of the quality standards have seen a net positive. So with that, I'm going to take on some questions.
Hey, Akeem, thank you so much. It's Ernie Lopez, and appreciate the great presentation, not just as a public policy maker, but as a parent with little kids too. So thanks. That was well done. How are there any teacher recruitment issues on the pre-K side? I know in general everybody talks about issues in regards to looking to promote teaching and education and employment and education more generally. But I don't know if that's really, is that across the board? Is that secondary, middle school, and elementary? How are we doing on the pre-K side of things in regards to having that really smart, caring, competent college student who's an education major look at pre-K as opposed to maybe looking at secondary? Are there some ways in which we can be doing more in working with our higher educational institutions in our states to kind of push that?
Yeah, so that is a great question. And one of the things that, so before coming over to CityHealth and even before working with City Council, I worked with our public school system around that exact issue. I'd like to take that a little further. The biggest gap that we see when it comes to the teacher workforce, especially in the pre-K area, that we don't see many men in that. And it's actually really important, especially for in urban areas, that kids see men in all of these roles, that we're not genderizing certain roles. So one of the things that DCPS did was partner with the local high schools. And so essentially kids could take essentially what was a gap year in their learning and become a teacher's aide in a pre-K classroom. And we partnered with some of the local universities here in DC to where that gap year gave them credit for a ECE certification program. And so once they were done with that gap year, they go into some of our local universities, whether it's Catholic University or American University, with some credits already in place so that they can continue that piece. If you're able to create unique partnerships with local universities that way, then it helps you kind of recruit your own. So people from the community are able to continue to stay in the community and work in the community that way. And I would say that programs like that across the grade bands would be really important. The teacher recruitment issue is an issue every district is facing. Many teachers are low, or they're not paid as well as they should be. And we ask teachers to do so much. We basically put all of societal issues in the school and ask teachers to solve them. So that's like figuring out unique ways to create partnerships that way with universities, where you're also able to recruit people who are from the community to do that work is an important.
Thank you.
Yeah, Akeem, thanks so much. Anyone else with questions about pre-K standards of quality implementation? Akeem is a real subject matter expert here and can be a real resource for us both today and going forward. So anybody with questions, I'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll move forward if none.
I'll close by saying this. The 10 quality standards are things that you can put in your legislation. And those quality standards are the ones that are going to set you up for success. We see them and NEAR sees them as the minimum for success. So if you are thinking about a universal program, that is important. But in order to set you up for success, you should really think about what are the ways that you can legislate these quality standards.
Akeem, thanks so much. Is there I don't know if you have it on hand or not, but if you've got a PDF of those standards, would you mind throwing that in the chat just for everyone to have as a resource leaving here?
Yep, no problem. I can pull that up, and how about I email it to you in the next 10, 15 minutes,
Sounds
and then
great.
you can share it with the group.
Sounds great.
We work on research briefings, and like all of that is included in there, so I can just pull those from our shared drive.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And just so everyone knows, I've read through a lot of what CityHealth has produced around PreK specifically, and I can vouch that it is quality work, and you will greatly benefit from spending some time with it. So we're glad to have CityHealth as a friend of ours. So thank you again to Akeem. Thanks again to Matt. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to committee members about some resources and opportunities that you have as just being a part of the committee. One of them is the CSG East website. And within that website, we have separate areas for each of the policy committees that CSG East has. And as a member of the committee, we want you to be engaged with what we're producing. And so you have the opportunity that if you're doing something particularly innovative around education, if a bill of yours was passed, or a bill you're a co-sponsor on was passed, or something great in your state is happening on education, we want to know about that. And we want to let other people know about that. So if there's something great going on in education in your state, I'll keep an eye on it too. I'll keep my finger on the pulse and reach out to you. But if there's something going on, let us know. And we'll have an opportunity to publish a press release, a write-up, a blog about that work on our website under our education tab. And that makes a great place for you all to be able to share that out, and for us to be able to share that out to individuals interested in knowing what's going on with education out in our Eastern region. You can also, as a committee, or as individuals on the committee, submit research requests. If there's something, whether it's pre-K, or some other policy area within education that you are interested in getting a little more information on, you can submit research requests. Really, it would be to me, and I would undertake bringing on some very, very smart friends like Akeem, and diving in and doing some research myself, and bringing to you what it is you feel like you need in order to move the ball forward in your state. We want to be a resource for you, and we want to make that the committee, what we can say about the work of the committee is that we're moving education forward in our Eastern region and setting an example for the rest of the country. So do not hesitate to reach out with questions, with requests for more information. If we don't have it on hand and we don't know where to get it, we are really good at finding very, very smart friends, again, like Akeem, to come in and talk to you all about it. And that leads to the next part, which is webinars. And it's not limited to webinars, but that's certainly kind of the most easy to put together at a rapid pace and not have to get everybody together in person. If there's an area of interest that a lot of people have questions on, a lot of people on the committee are wanting data about, one thing that we can do for you is put together a webinar. And over the last year, we've had webinars on school reopening and disproportionately affected populations within education, and a lot of other policy areas within education. And we've been able to say, we've had 3, 4, 5 committee members come to us and ask questions about this. Let's reach out to some subject matter experts. Let's put together a webinar, find a time that works for the committee to get together. We can learn about these things, get the data, get the information. You can take that back to your states and again, work on moving the ball forward for your constituents. So those are just 3 things that I want to make sure everyone on the committee knows that they can do, that they have access to, that they have the ability to do. And if you have any questions at all about those things, I'm going to right now put my email in the chat. That being said, everyone has had me in their inbox over the last month and a half anyway, so you should have it, but there it is again. If you want to access any of these things, or you have questions about any of these things or anything you've heard today, please let me know. I am a resource for you. I'm a resource for the committee, and I want to be there to do the things that you need. So with that, I will turn it over to Senator Lopez for some final remarks.
Max, thanks again, and for your leadership and for facilitating this conversation this morning. And again, thanks to all of my colleagues from all of our CSG East states who took the time to be together this morning. Congratulations to Representative McKenzie. It's good to see always new members in general assemblies across the country, but especially members that take the time to join in fellowship here in CSG East, and look forward to meeting in person sometime in the near future. But again, as we go into the new school year, as Max said, any questions and concerns that we hear from our constituents, any ways in which we can be doing better work together, I think we can all agree when it comes to education, there are no district lines. And we can always be doing more for our kids and for our teachers. So with that said, again, Max, thank you again for your leadership and for bringing us all together this morning. And thanks to CSG East for their leadership, not just in education, but all the public policy areas that affect each and every one of us, but most importantly, each and every one of our constituents. Thank you.
Yes, and folks, Akeem has just sent me that that document from CityHealth. So if you stick around just a moment, I am going to put that in the chat for us, and then everyone can go their separate ways. Again, we appreciate everyone showing up. Thanks so much.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.